Today we're going to talk about the participle. The participle is a grammatical form in the Greek language that is a very commonly used item that expresses a lot of meaning, particularly in the New Testament. And so it's very important that a scholar of the Greek language needs to understand it. The English language also has the participle, but it's used to a much lesser extent. But generally speaking, the participle in the English is a verb with the ending ing that can then act essentially as an adjective. And this is why the participle is often called a grammatical hybrid, because it conveys the idea of a verb whilst also acting essentially as an adjective. Because it's like an adjective in the Greek, it's fully declinable. And this is to permit the agreement of the participle in gender, number, and case with the noun that it qualifies. This agreement allows for a clearer grammatical relationship than in English, where the relationships are often only inferred contextually. Now we'll get on to the way it acts like a verb, but while we're talking about its declension, let's get into it here. The active participles and the aorist passive participles use endings from the third declension for the masculine and neuter genders, and the first declension for the feminine gender. The present, middle, and passive, though, follow the second declension adjectival endings. Like I said, it is a verb, and essentially it's like a verb. The participle, therefore, has a subject. It also has a tense form and voice. And there are three basic tense forms, the present, the aorist, and the future, which each express a sort of a different aspect. The present emphasizes the imperfective aspect, and essentially the way it conveys this is it sort of has a temporal relationship with the main verb in the sentence, and that action occurs concurrently. The aorist expresses the aoristic aspect, and essentially it acts in past tense in comparison to the action of the main verb. The present and the aorist participles are much more common in the New Testament, but the future also exists, and the future essentially acts subsequently to the main verb in the sentence. Now, the Greek and the English don't align eye to eye, as I said at the start. The English doesn't have a full set of participles that the Greek does, so often when we convey the same meaning in English, we use auxiliary verbs, often to be, or having been, or along those lines. So those auxiliary verbs are added around the main verb of the participle to emphasize the same action. And I've got on the screen a declension of the participle for the verb to love. So how is it used? Well, it's often used adjectivally. Now, and like the adjective, it can express the attributive position, so where it modifies a noun. So on the screen, I've got the sentence, I saw the running boy. Running there is run is a verb, but running is a participle that acts adjectively on the noun boy. It can also act substantively, so where it acts like a noun itself. In English, we might say, I saw the runner, but essentially, I saw the running one, where essentially it acts as a noun. It can also act adverbially, and it is often translated as an adverbial clause. While I was running, I saw the boy. And it often explains temporal or causal relationships. There were also specific uses, such as the telic participle, and I've got a lot of the different uses of the adverbial participle on the screen there. But there's an important one to recognize in the Greek, and that's the genitive absolute. So when the subject of the participle is different from the subject of the main clause, the participle and the nouns accompanying it are placed in the genitive case. And so this allows for ideas that are occurring concurrently to be expressed whilst also maintaining grammatical distinction between the two ideas. And this is very important in the Greek language because essentially the Greek uses the participle so much more than the English. Thank you.